Welcome, everyone. Steve Wiss here, and I'm joined by Kevin Harper. We are here for the All Sports Betting Podcast T20 Cricket Previews. We've got now an episode which is focusing on some team individual outrights for the 8 teams that are joining the tournament from Saturday onwards. You want to check back for our tournament outright preview last week. We've got several other picks on that show. And, of course, we had selections for Group A and Group B. Some of which have either won or lost now, and we've still got a couple riding on the Sri Lankan market and a couple of others as well. So basically, we're going to be talking about Bangladesh, Australia, New Zealand, England, who else have we got here? Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, and South Africa. We've got individual bets for each of these teams. So we do now know the makeup of the groups, Kev. So if you want to explain who's gone into which section for us, and you're not going to bet on this, but give me a prediction who's going to win each group.
So Group 1 contained England, Australia, Afghanistan, and New Zealand prior to the first stage. It's now got Ireland, got Ireland and Sri Lanka in it as well. Still can't see beyond Australia in that. And then the other group, India, Pakistan, South Africa, Bangladesh, and have been joined by Zimbabwe and the Netherlands. And if you pushed me to pick a winner of that group, I would go one of Pakistan or South Africa.
Thought you might say South Africa. That group does look quite a weak group, I must say, overall. And I think that's where definitely Zimbabwe have landed in a nice section there, for sure. Sri Lanka, not so easy for them. And you can tell in the actual outright odds, they're bigger than they were this time last week. They're 40-1 now.
So, yeah, and I think part of that, the group that they've gone in, like you say, and also the injuries they've accumulated along the way.
Whereas the likes of India and South Africa have actually shortened a little bit, probably due to the West Indies or not getting one of the better nations in there. And if you do fancy some of these outright outsiders at the moment, Bangladesh, you can get them at 250-1, Afghanistan 80-1, Zimbabwe up to 300-1, Ireland 350-1, and that's it. Isn't it? That's the lot for you. But as I say, check back to that outright preview show. We've got loads of outrights still that are still very much relevant as well that you can get on. But we've got some separate ones. We're going to start with Bangladesh because I actually forgot to mention them in last week's outright preview show. So I do apologise to the Bangladesh fans. So they're going to get headline billing on this show. And we're going to talk about them a little bit more than some other teams. So Bangladesh, Kev. What are you expecting from them in this tournament? We'll talk about the bet in a minute, although it might be in combination with it. But what's to like and what's not to like about the Bangals in this tournament?
Yeah, there's not a lot to like, really, Steve. For their poor side, these conditions obviously aren't conducive to the way they play their cricket. Part of the problem that they've got is when they play home series, they really do have home advantage. They make like all sorts of nasty, horrible turning tracks where sort of 120, 125 is a good score. And then when they leave Bangladesh, they obviously get found out as a result of that. They don't win many matches. They certainly don't win many matches against big nations. I mean, they cruised through their first round group. They were in such a bad state they had to go to the first round of the World Cup last year. They cruised through that after they lost to Scotland in the first game. And then from there onwards, so from the start of, say, this point in this tournament onwards up to now, they've played 23 T20 internationals in the last 12 months and a little bit, and they've won 4 of those 23, and those 4, 2 of them were against UAE, one was against Afghanistan and one was against Zimbabwe. So they haven't beaten a recognised decent side in the last year in this format, and that's a pretty big sort of set of numbers. 23 games, that's 2 a month. I mean, obviously some of those are series, but they recently played New Zealand and Pakistan in a tri-series in New Zealand. Never landed a blow in that tournament, and some of their star men, with the exception of Shakib Al Hassan, who still does all the franchise circuits, some of their other star men, if you think back to Bangladesh at the 2019 World Cup 50 over, they were a pretty good side then, but the likes of Tamim Iqbal, Mushfiqur Rahim, they're a thing of the past. Same with Mahmudullah. Mustafizur's on this tour, but I think he's sort of slowly on the way out as well. And there isn't really a lot of top level sort of replacements. So yeah, you're probably right to forget about them, to be honest, mate.
Yeah, it feels like I started with the worst here. But is there a case? I mean, by the sounds of it, is there general cricket, certainly in T20 format, as bad or worse than the likes of Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, Ireland?
I would say so. Yeah, I think the three
On
teams
par with, anyway.
Yeah, I think the three teams you've mentioned can go away from home and be successful. I mean, obviously, two of them have shown it already in this tournament, haven't they? And I think Afghanistan can do that as well. It is partly down to that. I mean, to be fair to Bangladesh, they're a very good 50 over side, a very good 50 over side. And when we get to the 50 over World Cup next year, if we're doing these podcasts again, we'll have a completely different tune that we're playing about them. But in these conditions, at this time, with so many legends sort of faded away from this format, funnily enough, they're playing in the longer formats. It's usually the other way around. Yeah, I just can't like them. I can't like them at all. Even in this group, I can't like them.
No, I mean, so it's a soft group, but you're going to take, you're not even going to get involved in the individual batting or bowling markets for Bangladesh, but there is a side bet, and that is Bangladesh not to win a match at 12-1. And obviously that includes any rained off game that will not be classed as a win. So you think they can go not pointless, but winless?
Yeah, I do, Steve. Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, I'd have much preferred them to be in the other group. I think we've got to say that. If they were in the other group, but then again, they wouldn't be 12-1, would they? So part of it's the price, but part of it is also the way that their fixtures have fallen. You would think on paper the easiest game in the group is the Netherlands, purely because I suspect the air might come out of the balloon for the Netherlands. They've kind of achieved what they come here to do. The only problem for Bangladesh is that's their first game on Monday afternoon in Hobart. Well, they'll need submarine ships and everything else.
There's no chance of play there, is there?
No.
It's underwater for the next week, that place.
That place is basically out of the equation now. So if the easiest game's washed out, then you've got the four harder games. I suppose the one is Zimbabwe. But then is Zimbabwe going to be 12-1 to beat Bangladesh in a match bet? No, they're not. So let's take this and take our chances. That game's at Brisbane, which I think might fancy Zimbabwe more than it does Bangladesh anyway. And it only needs Raza to come off for 10 overs or something like that. And who knows? So, yeah, I'll take the risk. I don't think Zimbabwe were that bad against Scotland's spinners on Friday. And that gives me encouragement that they can go well against Bangladesh. I know they lost to Bangladesh in amongst the last year, but I fancy Zimbabwe might turn the tables. At 12-1, I'll certainly be paying to find out. This is basically a 4-game sort of accumulator against them, really, isn't it? Because I just can't see that Netherlands game going ahead. And also, they play South Africa in Sydney. And as we mentioned in the Australia-New Zealand podcast, Sydney's also underwater a little bit as well. So, yeah, nothing to like about Bangladesh. And I'll pay to see if they're as terrible as I think they might be.
I must say, I do love this sort of bet. I love betting against poor teams. There's just something about it, it's almost wrong in a way, but I love to see a terrible side in action if you're profiting from it. So, I mean, hopefully they are awful.
This is how poorly they've played, Steve. They played 4 games in that Tri-Series tournament that I mentioned between, admittedly New Zealand and Pakistan, but let's not forget Pakistan are in this group anyway. They lost by 21 runs. This is all 20 over games. 21 runs, 8 wickets, 48 runs, and 7 wickets. So they never got close in any of those 4 matches. They were completely outplayed. They played a warm-up game ahead of this tournament against Afghanistan, who you would say are the kind of on a par sort of with them in that they come from Asia and they're kind of an emerging nation. Bangladesh are a little bit more advanced in terms of their emergence. But Afghanistan put up a decent score and then bowled out Bangladesh for 98. So there's just nothing to like about Bangladesh. And I think that 12-1 is going to give us a run for our money. And obviously, if we get past Zimbabwe, then we've got India and Pakistan riding for us. Well, we should be okay with them too.
We might genuinely, presuming the forecast holds up, we might genuinely be on Zimbabwe to beat them at 12-1 or not to lose against them at 12-1 because I can't see them getting close to the recognised Test sides. I think we might have given them headline billing for the wrong reason, but it might be one of the best value bets you can find outright left in this tournament. So Bangladesh not to win a match at 12-1. That's at Bet365. If you can't get that price anywhere, look at a long-term parlay accumulator against them. They'll be out there somewhere. Some bookmakers do just price these games up for the whole tournament. So or just keep betting against them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just back singles, yeah.
In whatever form. Betting against bad teams is an art to that. Handicaps everything. I'm sure we'll get to that in the matches, but not a good team, Bangladesh, by the sounds of it. So moving to Australia now, plenty of talk about them in the previews and stuff. Your individual bet for them is a 1 unit pick on Mitchell Marsh with their top tournament run scorer. Tell us a bit about him and where's he going to bat?
He's going to bat at 3. Before I go right into this, though, Cameron Green's a wild card in this lot. He's only just been called into the squad, as I mentioned, in the Australia-New Zealand series. Now, he opened the batting in India for Australia and against the West Indies for Australia. Now, if they suddenly completely throw their plans up in the air and you see him on the scorecard against New Zealand opening the batting, try and get on this market because he's something like 10 or 12-1 because they don't expect him to open the batting. Having said that, he has only just been called into the squad. There's no guarantee he's going to play, and Finch and Warner should be the opening pair. In which case, I like Mitchell Marsh, Steve. Very good in Australian conditions. Very, very good in Australian conditions, actually. He only played half the Big Bash season last year because he was messing around with all sorts of things. He had problems. Perth Scorchers had problems with people going back home to Perth because of COVID regulations that were in the country, as Novak Djokovic found out, for those tennis fans amongst you. And also, they had to stay in a hotel. So if they left the hotel to go and play for Australia, they then had to quarantine before they could go back in the hotel. So Mitchell Marsh only played half the tournament, but he still averaged 57.83 for the matches that he played. And he finished something like 10th top scorer in the whole thing, even though he only played half of it. His T20 career average is actually 38.21. That's pretty good for a T20 format because it's not like he's just someone who pitter-patters the ball around and bats through the innings. He actually scores it quite a lick as well. So, his record in Australia really, really is good. And what I like about him is he's a good square of the wicket player. And obviously, Australia are playing one game at all of the main 5 venues, aren't they? Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Brisbane, and Perth. Well, with the exception of Perth, they're all fairly okay. Maybe Melbourne as well. They're all fairly okay square of the wicket. So he should get the shorter boundaries how he likes it. And he's in good form. He's just coming back from injury, but he was in good form against England. And I see him having a good season. Good series.
Mitchell Marsh, top Australian tournament batsman, 9-2, 1 unit there at Bet Victor. Moving on to New Zealand, then you've got another top batsman for them. You've not gone with my man, the ex-Yorkshire player. But Glenn Phillips does tickle your fancy here at 8-1 shot with Boyles. You're not expecting a particularly great tournament from New Zealand, are you? I don't think you expect them to qualify for the semi-finals.
No, I don't. No, I think this is a 5-match heat. And like you say, and obviously we've already covered the fact that the first game might be washed out as well. Glenn Phillips probably going to bat at number 4 for New Zealand in this tournament. He's another one I like. He's done all the sort of franchise scene, Caribbean Premier League, played for Gloucestershire in the T20 Blast for a couple of years to really good effect, actually. There's a couple of innings that he played for Gloucestershire and a couple of sixes in particular that he's like, if you're in them flats at Bristol, well, you need to board up your windows because he's dangerous down there. And I think he will be here, actually. He's not one of these. I always think New Zealand are kind of not helped by the fact that they play on such small grounds, Steve. But this guy, because he's travelled the world, he's batted on these bigger grounds. He scores quickly, so that'll help because he bats at 4. And as we said right throughout from the start of these podcasts, in an ideal world, you want people in the top 3. But I'm prepared to allow him that, partly because I think New Zealand are going to mix between your mate Finn Allen and Martin Guptill, so they might share the workload. Then you've got Devon Conway, the other opener, who doesn't score particularly quickly, and he should go well in Australia, but he doesn't always do it. And Kane Williamson, whose form is a real concern for New Zealand in this tournament. Daryl Mitchell would have been the other one that I liked here, but he's out injured, and he'll replace the guy at number 5 when he comes back in. So he's only going to play sort of half the matches anyway. I just think Glenn Phillips not only is he best suited to Australian conditions, he's the top New Zealand run scorer in 2022 in this format of the game. He's got 449 runs from 12 innings at an average of 49.88 per innings. So if he scores at that and they play 4 games, he's got 200, and I don't see anyone else getting 200 for New Zealand in this tournament.
Glenn Phillips, top New Zealand tournament batsman, 8-1 with Boyle Sports for 1 unit. We're going to move on to England now. And before we talk about this, I must remind people that of the 2 top tournament batsmen for teams that we've had settled so far, both won. King for West Indies and Mohammad Wasim for the UAE. And Nissanka for Sri Lanka has been going along very well. O'Dowd as well for the Netherlands. So you've started this tournament well in this particular market curve, identifying players for their respective teams. For those who watched the Outright show last week, the Outright preview show, you actually backed David Malan to be the top tournament run scorer at a big 40-1 price. You can still back that somewhere, no doubt. Don't know if you can get the same each way odds or not, but in for a penny, in for a pound, eh? We're going to also take him, top England tournament batsman. So for a more detailed listen, I'm sure you can check back to last week, but I guess nothing's really changed since last week. You really love this player to perform at this tournament.
Yeah, I do, Steve. And also, there's a couple of batters that have made it through the groups who've gone well, haven't they? And those runs count towards that outright market.
They do, yeah.
Sikandar Raza is about 150 runs down the line. Nissanka and Mendes of Sri Lanka are closing in on him. So Milan's already got a bit of catching up to do. It might be that England make semi-finals and those 2 sides don't. And so he'll have the time to catch up. But I still think he'll go well for exactly the same reasons that I've said before. I think the new ball, we've seen it in this tournament, haven't we? There's been a bit of nibble with the new ball, a little bit of swing. All the rain that's around is only going to exacerbate that. You'll notice a trend right throughout this podcast that the players I'm on are the ones with a good technique. David Milan's got the best technique in the England side and bats at 3. Not an awful lot not to like. Butler will come off. Hales will come off. But they won't come off every single game, whereas Milan can be relied upon a lot more. And, slow and steady wins the race, as the tortoise said to the hare.
What is England's schedule here? We know they started in Perth, and we know the weather is good for that game. Where have they got to go to after that? And it might be that first game could be crucial for him, not just in this particular market, but also in terms of batsmen outright. He might get an edge on those that are playing on that East Coast at the moment.
Yeah, well, the positive thing is that they don't play in Hobart, so that's a good thing. They go to Melbourne for 2 games against Ireland and Australia. That's clear. It's clearing up in Melbourne now, isn't it? So that's good. Then they're off to Brisbane, and then they're in Sydney, but the Sydney game's not for another 2 weeks. So hopefully all the issues in Sydney have been and gone by that time.
On to Afghanistan, then you've got a bit of an outsider here in terms of odds. For a top tournament batsman for them, a gentleman called Usman Ghani.
Yeah,
so we talked about him a little bit, didn't we, in the first preview match against England, and he might be batting quite top 4.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him in that series, and we talked about him because someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone's priced him up, well, completely wrong, haven't they? It's a couple of bookies.
Betfred, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of bookies were like 9-2, and someone was 14-1. Well, they've gone and made exactly the same mistake with the outright market as well, because he is 14-1 in that as well. This time it's Betfair that's done that. In terms of batting position, if you look when they played Ireland earlier in the year, he was batting at, well, I mean, he did come in and open a batting at times. So if he opens a batting in this series, happy days. But he hasn't batted lower than 4 in any series apart from 1 game against Zimbabwe, which was in this tournament last year. So by and large, he's going to be in the top 4. So this guy's good. And you look at the scores that he's made. If we go back to the start of the year, against Bangladesh, he scored 47. Against Ireland in Belfast in August, he scored 59. And he also scored another 44 not out. And he scored runs in a warm-up game as well. In total, he scored 104 runs in 3 matches in Ireland. He's got a total career T20 international average of 27.11. As I say, scored 32 in a warm-up game against Pakistan. That's pretty good. And there aren't many Afghanistan players that that are in that sort of form. The two openers, they're class. I like the two openers. Ramanullah Gurbaz, the wicketkeeper who was meant to be at Leicestershire for the Blast. He had a really good Caribbean Premier League campaign. I like him. And Hazratullah Zazai. And my apologies if I've mispronounced their names. I like him, but they're like Butler and Hales, albeit a poor man's version of them. They'll come off one in 5, 6. Whereas I think this guy, Ghani, he's going to come off an awful lot more. He seems to be a lot more consistent. And if he opens the batting like he has done in an awful lot of his T20 games, happy days. But I would imagine he won't. I'll imagine he bat 3 or 4.
Excellent. Usman Ghani then, top Afghanistan tournament batsman, 14-1 for 1 unit, currently at Betfair. Let's move on to India then, who start the tournament against Pakistan, of course. And you're into their top bowling market here rather than top batsman market. And Arshdeep Singh is your man, a 5-1 shot here for 1 unit. You're not really, well, actually, your next one, in fairness, is a tournament bowler one as well. You generally prefer to go in the batting market. But Arshdeep Singh, then, you think he's going to finish top of their wicket table?
Yeah, I'm generally focusing on batting, Steve, because there's more differential in the runs than there are in the wickets in short and down games. Obviously, we've mentioned an awful lot. It's very unlikely that all the teams are going to go 5 games without having some rain somewhere along this tournament, given the band of rain that's going down the east coast of Australia. So, reluctant to get involved in too many bowler markets, particularly the teams that might rotate their bowlers as well, England being one of those, for example. I don't think India have got the depth to do it, though. Obviously, Jasprit Bumrah is out, and that's a massive loss for them. There was all sorts of talk that maybe Mohammad Siraj would replace him, but it was actually Mohammad Shami, and he could be a danger. But they need a death bowler. Harshal Patel, they've kind of tried him a few times. He went well in the IPL for Bangalore, but at this level, he seems to be very hit and miss, and he's also an injury concern as well at times. Arshdeep Singh he's kind of new to the Indian fold, but he's still got 19 wickets in 13 matches in 2022 for India. But it's a strike rate that interests me, 14.5 balls per wicket. So he takes a wicket every 14.5 balls. So if you think that spells 24 balls, he'll take sort of 3 wickets every 2 matches, so to speak. So that bodes well. He's a left-arm seamer. We've seen an awful lot of left-arm seam go well in this tournament already. He can swing the ball. He's got a decent Yorker. He's very good at the death. He's got a good slower ball. There is a danger that he doesn't play right from the start. But to flip that around, India play Pakistan on Sunday, and the forecast for that is every bit as bad as it is for the other games next week. So it might well be that he doesn't miss out too much anyway if he doesn't play in that first game. Just hopefully he gets a game early doors, and if he does and he impresses and he stays in the side in a wide open betting market, I'm happy to take this. Happy to get involved in the bowler here because we're on Sir Kumar Yadav outright for the top batsman anyway.
Pakistan, then, you're going with another top bowler here for them. Haris Rauf to be the Pakistan top tournament bowler, 7-2 with Betfair. This is a 2-unit selection. So you must be quite confident he can definitely do the business for the Pakistan here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've convinced me that I've got to have a Yorkshire player in amongst this lot. So no, I'm only joking. He is a Yorkshire player, so that'll keep the Yorkshire people happy. I've got this between 2, Steve, and that's why I like this market as opposed to the batting one. The batting one, funnily enough, is also between 2. Babar Azam, Mohammad Rizwan. But if you look at the odds, one's even money, one's 11-10. So you're not exactly, even if you pick the right one, you're not exactly getting paid out particularly much. The bowler market, I believe it's going to be between Shaheen Shah Afridi, who I'm such a big fan of him. I really am. But unfortunately, he's just come back from injury. I just wonder if when they come along against the sort of Netherlands and Zimbabwe's, whether he might sort of sit out and they save him for the India and South Africa games. Don't see that being the case with Haris Rauf. I think he'll play all the games. He's kind of been managed nicely in the lead up to this tournament. 23 wickets he's got in 2022, which is pretty good. They've come at a strike rate of 15.4 balls. So again, he's taking a wicket every spell, which is important. Pakistan played a 7-match T20 series against England towards the end of last month, start of this month. He played in 6 of those games, took 8 wickets. In that tri-series thing I've been mentioning, he played in 3 of those games, took 6 wickets. He is experienced in Australian conditions because he's played for the Melbourne Stars for the last 2 or 3 seasons in the Big Bash League. So he'll know all these pitches. He'll know how to bowl on them. He'll know how to get the best out of them. And on the assumption that he plays more games than Afridi, and I'm pretty certain he will do, he's my pick in what I believe is a match in that market.
It's Ralph, top Pakistan tournament bowler, 72 there for a couple of units. The final team individual outright we've got going is with South Africa, who I think they start the tournament the latest out of any side, actually. We're going with a top batsman at 9-1, Reza Hendricks, for 1 unit.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to tell you that in his last 5 T20 internationals, he has scored 57, 53, 70, 74 and 42 and isn't guaranteed a place in the side, you'd kind of look at me as if to say, what the hell is happening
You'd
there?
be saying, how good are they? That's what you'd be saying.
You would also be saying that. The reason why he's not guaranteed a place in the side is because Temba Bavuma is their captain. But if you listen again to the Outright podcast that we did, his form is absolutely terrible. And I'm hoping that either he'll play as a captain and bat down the innings and Hendricks can open where he scored all of these runs. Or better still, he doesn't play, gives David Miller the captaincy and Hendricks plays anyway. In between those 5 scores in those T20 internationals, Steve, he played for his franchise side in South Africa. They had this sort of Namibia T20 tournament where they invited the champions of Pakistan, the champions of Namibia, and the champions of South Africa. And he played 4 games, and in those matches, he scored 77, 31, 55, and 94. So this bloke knows how to score runs in T20 cricket. And now the funny thing is, he's not a power blaster or anything like that. He's just an extremely good technician who times the ball very, 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 very well, finds the gaps, and knows how to occupy the crease and not get out and lets everyone else bat around him. South Africa really, really, really should play this guy. He will really enhance their chances of winning this tournament. And if they do play him 9-1 in this market, he'll open the batting. Is an absolute huge price. The caveat is, and I've got to stress this, the caveat is for some reason he is not currently in their side. But I'm hoping he gets in. I'm hoping he gets in early enough to do some damage. And sometimes you just got to pay on these value plays and find out, it might be that someone gets injured in the first game, he gets in, and all of a sudden, happy days and off we go. Anything can happen. Hopefully he plays. Hopefully he plays that opening game, scores a plenty, and cracks on, because these pitches are perfect for him. He plays for Johannesburg back home, and so he's used to pace and bounce. Whereas Bavuma, he should be used to it, but I mean his form. We've been talking about Paul Sterling's form for the last week, haven't we, Steve? Well, Bavuma makes Paul Sterling's form look like Sir Donald Bradman's. So, it's
Sterling finally came good with the knock, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they should play Hendricks, and I'll pay to find out if they do.
I just don't get this captaincy situation with South Africa. Bavuma, why is he the captain of their T20 team? Is he a captain of their other formats as well, or
he's captain of the 50 over as well? Yeah.
So I just think it's bizarre. Why, if he's clearly been terrible for them, you just give the captaincy to someone else.
I don't know if the quota system's still in place, Steve. If it is, then that might be a reason for it. Obviously, the only other black players they've got in the side, Kagiso Rabada, and I suppose Tabraiz Shamsi. There used to always be this quota system for South African cricket, didn't there? They did do away with it in the sort of Graham Smith time, but whether it's whether someone's brought it back again, and maybe that's the thing. But yeah, they should they should stand him down, give the captaincy for this tournament to David Miller. If they get an injury, then by all means bring him back into the side. But for me, he's not in amongst their first 7 batsmen. Reza Hendricks has to play. If Reza Hendricks plays, I think South Africa are genuine dangers for this tournament. If he doesn't, the middle order will be put under so much pressure that I mean, they don't need the invitation to choke anyway, do they? But it'll be put under so much pressure that I see them choking.
Could he win this market even if he misses the first match, say, and then
I think
pressure puts him in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got De Kock as the other opener. You've got Rousseau at 3. So if one or both of those miss out in that game, and say someone like Miller at 6 or Stubbs at 7, they're the ones that get them out of the hole. Well, those two aren't going to be batting as often as an opening batsman. So, yeah, he can miss a game as long as he doesn't come in sort of game 3 or 4, or the cock goes bonkers in the first game. Then we should be okay. But I mean, even in the warm-up games, he scored runs. He has to have forced his way in. If he hadn't forced his way in, he might as well fly home. It's bonkers.
Ridiculous. Yeah. Okay, well, that concludes the particular show. We've got 8 more bets for you for outright here. I'll just go through them. Bangladesh not to win a match at 12-1 for 1 unit. Mitchell Marsh, top Australian tournament batsman, 9-2 for 1 more unit. Glenn Phillips, top New Zealand tournament batsman, 8-1 for a unit. David Malan, top England tournament batsman, 4-1 for a couple of units. Afghanistan, Usman Ghani to be their top tournament batsman, 14-1 for 1 unit. Arshdeep Singh, top India bowler, 5-1 for a unit. Haris Rauf, top Pakistan tournament bowler, 7-2 for 2 units. And Reza Hendricks, top South African tournament batsman. There we see it, 9-1 for a unit. It's been a pleasure, Kev. We are right into the big time now. The match is coming thick and fast. Venues all over the place. Loads of big names, loads of big countries. I expect the betting is really just going to go up tenfold for people now that these qualifying matches are out of the way. You can follow us every single day for match previews. We are going to be doing all the matches right all the way up to the final. So we will be giving you the best bets, the best analysis, the best previews here on the All Sports Betting Podcast with myself, Steve Wiss, and of course Kevin Harper. Do follow us on the socials here, 4 Twitter accounts to follow, and check out Kev's website, kevs.sportsbets.com. Are you excited, Kev, now that we're really into the meat of the tournament?
Yeah, I am, Steve. We've had the sort of whetting of the appetite with the group stages, and the 2 brilliant groups, weren't they? Both went down to the final game. Hopefully these 2 do as well, and we see some fantastic cricket along the way. Hopefully the rain just does one. Come on, clear off. And we can pick loads of winners and see loads of good cricket.
We'll be back to preview Sunday's games, including the big one, India against Pakistan. Well, the rain looks bad for that, but we'll preview it anyway. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good luck with your picks, whatever you're taking, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.